So far, we've been playing around with our first development. So we've created a protocol, applied it on our data miner, and we could see a result in there. So far, we've only been looking at a param. We could create a read param, we could create a writable component, we could set a value in there. Now it's time to start adding some logic as well. The exercise that we'll be doing is to represent the amount of times a timer has run a specific flow. So our flow will be very easy. It will be on a regular time. Please count up a counter on my display. We'll start by going back to the exercise we've done last time. So here we can see the param that we've created in the previous exercise, and the value is set currently to 5. We had a main page which displayed only the read component. We had a read-writable, so more configurable data page where we could see our value again, so it's the same param, and it's a writable component where we can set our value. So now we would like to have another displayed param that will eventually show a counter going up. So we've done this already. So let's go to our definition and create another displayed param. So we have my params here. I collapsed them so it will be more readable for you guys as well. We have our DIS tree, and in here I will be able to nicely see all the added components in there. Now I'm going to use the same steps as we've done last time. I'm going to create a snippet, so I'm going to insert my snippet, DIS, protocol, and I'm going to use a param. Of course, I want to display it again, so I'm going to select display param. For the IDs, I'm going to, in this time, use 11. It's the next read ID after my first one. The first one was 10, so I'm gonna use my house rules, and this will be ID 11. I would like to represent my counter, so it will count the amount of loops we've taken, how many times my flow has run. So I'm going to call it loop counter, and this will be my, just gonna call it counter amount of times the flow has run. It will be numeric as well, so it's a number, and I'm going to keep it displayed, and for instance I'm going to show it as an analog bar as well. Now remember, an analog bar, I wanted to have a beginning and an end in there, so I'm going to use the range as well. Now to apply these things, I'm not going to type the XML code in here. I'm going to use my display editor, so I can fine-tune my param along the way. So I have my loop counter. I'm going to display it on my main page as well, and I'm going to edit a little bit. For instance, I'm only going to create a counter that should count till 5. And I'm going to use sessions as a unit. So this is the amount of sessions that this has been running. I can add alarming, trending in here as well. My tooltip is already filled in, so I can apply this change. Now when I will update this to my data miner, I will see my second param. But I want to add some extra feature in here for you guys to learn. I would like to have it a default value. So remember, when we uploaded our previous example, we had our health check and it indicated not initialized. It meant it's empty, there's nothing in there. But in my case, in my loop counter, I want to showcase a value already in there. And just for the example purpose, I'm not going to pick 0 as an example for the default value. I'm going to, for instance, already put it to 3. We're going to apply this so we can see our defined param in our data miner. So I have my counter here, my param, and it's already saying 3 sessions. This default value means whenever it's empty, so it would be not initialized, then apply this value on it. In case I would have stored this, I would have saved this param. So my definition, I would indicate this data needs to be stored in a database, then my default value will not be applied. It's only when I start up and normally my param is empty, it's not initialized, then apply my default value. So it seems my definition is correct. I have a range from 0 to 5 and we've started on our default value sessions. The amount is 3. Now let's work on our logic. X amount of time, I would like to count up the amount of times it has run logic. So I will have a timer. Let's just pick the 10-second timer and it will need to do something. To do something, that's a group in our definition, so I can already add a group in here. But my group doesn't exist yet, so I'm just getting a list of all the existing groups. So how do I continue? Well, I can already imagine it will probably have ID 11. Why? Well, my house rule says I would like to keep things linked together, so it makes sense. And my param, my counter param is 11, so I'm going to link that 11 value to my flow as well. Although it doesn't exist yet, you can see it here as well in the comments, a reference not found. Now you could also start with your to-do, what do I want to do, and then go to your timer, and then you will not end up in this not referenced thing, as you can see. So let's jump to the groups, because I would like to define a new group. Similar as to params, I'm also going to use snippets, because the snippets really help me out to know how to define it. So I'm going to go again, insert snippets, pick DIS, spell protocol, and this time I'm going to select a group. You can see I have only 2 options. It's not an SNMP group. I don't have an external data source that needs to connect through an SNMP connection. So I'm just going to select group. So again, I can use the tab key to jump from one item to another that needs to be filled in. And I'm going to call my ID 11. Why? Because that's the one I've chosen when I created my content of my timer. So you can see this here again as well. Now the name, I'm going to call this my loop counter as well. I'm going to call this counting up, for instance, and it will be an action. Now the content itself, as mentioned, I'm going to make sure I can increment. I'm going to add 1 to my counter. So again, I'm going to call this action 11 and create an action as well. Protocol and action, and I'm just going to call it an action because it's not about copy. I would like to increment something. So my action 11, and this will be my counting up. And I'm going to count up something on my param 11. Because that's the one that should say from 0 we go to 1, 2, 3, so on. Now, what's the action I need for this? I've already mentioned it a few times. I would like to increment. But imagine I have no clue that this exists. So in this case, I'm not going to use my snippets, tabs, but I'm going to have a peek on all the options that I have available, and one of them is increment. Now, what will it increment? Well, I can choose my value as well. In my case, I just want to increment 1, so I will say value 1, increment 1 by 1. This means every time this action is executed, I will increment param 11 by 1. It's a numeric one, and let's use the navigation to jump to our param again. My param started at default value 3. That means the first time this action will run, it will go from 3 to 4. The next time to 5. When will this be triggered? Let's go to our timers again. We had a timer every 10 seconds. I will run a group. My group will run an action. The action will increment 1. So as soon as I start up my element, my timer will run for the first time. So it could be I will not see my default value 3 again, but it will already jump to 4 because my timer has started up. The next time, so my timer will run 10 seconds later, it will initiate this counter again and it will jump to the next value and so on. We've already created some logic, so it's time to test it out. I will publish this and have a look what's going on my data miner. So actually I can already see that my value has jumped from my default value 3 to 4. And now we're already 10 seconds later, so my timer has run. We've ended up on 5. So this is working brilliantly. Now, what do we have now? We can see 6, but my range is only 5. So what's going on here? And now it's even 7. This is larger than the range that I have defined. Now, the range that we define is display. So on screen, my bar, as you can see, it has limited itself to the limit of our range. Both ways, so I have 0 and I have 5, and I could set a value which is out of that limit. You can see this little arrow in here saying it's larger than the displayed limit. I can set any value in there, regardless of my limit. That means I need to tweak my logic a little bit, because otherwise this will just go on forever and ever and ever, and we'll probably end up with a maximum exception in there. In our case, we also just wanted to count to 5. That means I will need to decide what do I do when I get to 5. Maybe I just want to reset and just continue to count. So when I reach to 5, I would like to set it to 0 and already jump to 1, because the next time it's counting means I already had another run. So I would like to see 5, and then the next time 1 again, 2, 3, 4, 5, again back to 1, 2, 3, 4. So how will I do this? Let's go back to our definition. We have several ways to solve this. You can try and investigate which ones there are. I'm just going to show you one way. I'm going back to my group. In my group, I would like to do something. So maybe I would first want to check if my value is already 5. If it is, then I would like to reset. So I would like to add a condition with this action as well. My group is a list of to-dos. What's my first to-do? Well, I would like to reset if there is a specific condition met. It's already giving me a hint what I will need to define here as well. So let's first go to the actions. So it will already exist when I will add it in my group. So again, I'm going to use snippet. Protocol action. Now, what do I want to do? I would like to reset. How do I reset? Well, I can copy the value 0 in there. That's how I can reset or actually set a specific value in another param. I'm going to copy a fixed value into an existing param. So I'm going to choose copy in my case. I'm going to give it an ID 12, and it's going to copy from somewhere, but I didn't yet create it. I do know that it will have to go to my param 11. So when I would enter this, I will have an incorrect value here. I will hold this thought for a moment. I will update it in a bit. I will need to make my fixed value first. What's my fixed value? Well, 0. I would like to reset it back to 0. So I'm going to make a param with a fixed value. Let's go to our params, and I'm going to make one over here, again using the snippets. Protocol param, it's a fixed value, so maybe I should look for fixed, and that's what I'm going to use, a fixed param. So it's not a display param, it has a specific value in there. In other programming languages, this might be a constant value. I'm gonna make a value 0, for instance, value 0 as name, and this will be my value 0. And of course, I need to fill in the value with 0. So now I have my param ID 3, which will represent the value 0. And I'm going to use this in the action I just created. So let's apply this, copy param ID 3 to 11, and that's what we see here. Now, of course, maybe copy 3 to 11 doesn't really make sense, although it's very useful when using the snippet because it will already apply the IDs in here, so you can't make a mistake where to put what ID. I will rephrase this. So I will call this reset my counter. However, I shouldn't just reset it. I wanted to reset it if my value of my counter was 5. So I'm going to add a condition on this action. So we can add this as well. Let's add condition. Defining a condition, we do it in this format. We can say ID, and this ID is the param ID. Which one? Well, my loop counter. You can see him over here in our TIS tree, loop counter. So my ID 11 is equal to 5. So we have an action. It will reset. I will add check in here, check reset counter. So it will check something first, and then if it's there, if this condition is met, it will copy the value 0 to our displayed counter. I still need to execute this. So let's go to our action, and I can say, well, that's the first thing you should do. First, you should check reset counter. Timer will run my to-do list, and the first thing on my to-do list is check if my counter is on 5. If it is, copy the value 0 in there. The next thing it will do is increment. So I will already see 1. So what I wanted to achieve was when it reached to 5, a reset, and immediately go to 1 again. And that's what I've accomplished with this. It will immediately count 1 to my value 0. So it will first copy value 0, reset my value. Then the next thing it will do is counting up. Let's go to this action. It will increment 1 with this value of 0, increment 1 is 1. So all of this should work. Let's have a look on our solution. So again, we had our default value set to 3. We started up, the timer started running, so it executed our to-do list for the first time, and that's where we end up with 4 sessions. Then our timer continues to run. After the 10 seconds, it will run its content again. That's why we ended up with 5 sessions, and now our timer has run again. It checked, condition was met, it was 5, and that's how it was resetted and set to 1. So actually our entire logic is working perfectly.